Hi, everyone. My name is Ronen Vengosh, and I'm VP of Platform and Ecosystem for Egnyte. And I have with me here today James Cook, who is Head of Strategic Alliances and Partnerships for PlanGrid. Hi, James.
Hey, Ronen. Great to talk to you.
Very excited. So, why don't we start with some basics? What does your role entail at PlanGrid?
Sure. Basically, all things partnership. That means everything from working with the big folks like Apple down to small startups, consulting firms, and basically anything that's not that is external to PlanGrid but is not a customer. I do spend time with customers, but I own the relationships with everybody else. Mostly that means that I'm working to build out our technology integration ecosystem. And that means there's a lot of construction technology companies that we work and integrate with. And there's a lot of horizontal technology companies, and particularly those like you all at Egnyte that have a very compelling story for construction and have a large construction customer base. So that ends up having a lot of nice synergy there. And then I also own I'll call it a product of ours called PlanGrid Connector and Offering, which is our white labeled integration platform as a service that allows our customers to create a lot of their own custom integrations that fit their exact business needs and workflow rules that they've tailored to exactly how they operate. And that works, again, with technologies like yours and a whole host of others out there, things like Smartsheet, and even growing, increasingly, some of the other construction technology companies out there. So we've got a valuable ecosystem of people that have integrated directly to our API, but also this growing ecosystem of folks where they've got endpoints onto this central hub, and within that hub, our customers can create exactly the integrations they want. So both are helping help drive customer engagement for our business.
Definitely sounds like you've got your hands full. I like that.
Absolutely.
That's pretty big. So James, PlanGrid's doing some really cool things in the space of kind of construction project management. You also have kind of blueprint annotation tools, lots of different things. And so you've been successful enough to get the attention of Autodesk that recently took you guys off the market for about $875 million, which is pretty cool. Congratulations on that. What made PlanGrid such an attractive asset for Autodesk?
First off, some of it is just the numbers. They in the press release where they announced the acquisition, they called out the fact that we have 12,000 paying customers and 120,000 paid users, and that they expect us to contribute $100 million of ARR to the business. So that is, that's an accomplishment for the team here and the founders in particular. But even more than that is there's a real strategic aspect of the combination of, and by the way, it's not just PlanGrid. Autodesk made several acquisitions in this space over the last year and a half, including Assemble, us, and Building Connected, and put all those together with their existing portfolio of products for construction called BIM 360. Then we have now a full suite of tools to hit almost every part of the construction project lifecycle, from what's described as pre-construction with some of the Assemble and Building Connected capabilities right into facilities operations and everything in between. And what made PlanGrid in particular a key piece of that is our historic focus on the field. We were built right from day one with the people who are actually out on construction projects in mind, the people who are getting mud on their boots, who are wearing hard hats and other protective gear. And we were built with an interface and a user experience that really speaks to the way that they work, the way that they've worked historically, but then unlocks new capabilities for them going forward. And so you put that together with the other products that Autodesk has, and that's everything from the design tools that they were founded as a one product company with AutoCAD 37 years ago, and have added a whole host of design tools on top of that. Then with the BIM 360 tools around construction project management and some of the operations and facility management tools, and even their expertise in manufacturing, all that comes together to create some really compelling stories for the customer and really creates a winning combination. So we're really excited about how that even early days where we're seeing that coming together. You can go and see on our website, for instance, we recently launched some integration between Revit, which is the design modeling, 3D modeling tool, and PlanGrid, where you can now take some of that 3D experience and take it out on an iPad, for instance, into the field in really compelling ways.
You know, and you mentioned something that kind of captured my attention, and you placed your acquisition by Autodesk as part of a larger, I guess, initiative by Autodesk. But if you look at this from an industry-wide perspective, this is kind of part of I guess, a broader trend that we're seeing in recent years. You know, for the longest time, construction has been kind of regarded as a tech or an innovation backwater, with not a lot of new and interesting things happening there. But in recent years, construction tech is a red hot sector, with lots of stuff happening, acquisitions, a ton of new companies, innovative solutions coming to market. What's changed? Like what was for me, it looks like it was all of a sudden a switch was thrown off, and things just started happening. What do you think that is?
So I think if I can put it in a simple word, it's mobile. PlanGrid was founded in 2011, less than a year after the iPad was launched. And that's been a real key factor in our success. And I think that has, not just us, but we've been a key player in that and in opening, I'd say, the technology industry as a whole's eyes to the potential of construction. But that mobile has been really, really important. There's always been a fair amount of technology in construction, but it was really stuck in the office or at best the trailer, where people were sitting in cubicles in front of monitors, tracking costs and schedules and doing all the things and adding transparency and accountability that are absolutely critical and important. I would never diminish those. And a lot of our partners are key players that help power those kinds of use cases. But one of the things that our founders saw is that 90% of the cost of most construction projects is out actually on the site. It's not back in that office. And so to really impact some of the productivity challenges that this industry has had, and to really be able to scale through the use of technology like other industries have, you needed to be able to apply it out there. And you weren't going to take even a laptop out onto the job site. It just wasn't the right form factor. So with something like the iPad and being able to now digitize things that have traditionally been paper and take them out there has been really, really critical. You can actually take them out onto the scaffolding or down into a tunnel that you're digging for a subway project. That kind of stuff is really important. And so we were early to that game, but you've seen a lot of other mobile apps that take different approaches to this pop up as well. A lot that do, for instance, time tracking or material and equipment tracking are really key. And now I think a lot of people, again, having woken up to the potential of this, see that there can be even more. So you're seeing a lot of reality capture technologies that actually go out to the field and can do either LiDAR scanning or 360-degree photos of an actual space and take that and create point clouds and compare them to models and do a lot of really cool stuff that you couldn't do before, or that people didn't think of doing before because they, again, thought of technology as that thing on your laptop or on your desktop computer in the office. And now that we've unlocked that mobile aspect, it's creating a lot of value that these companies are starting to invest in. I think even in the last 5 years or so, on average, construction companies have been increasing their technology budgets by basically doubling them. And so there's a lot of opportunity there because they're starting to see those ROIs. But it really does tie back to that notion of the fact that tablets and smartphones have become prevalent enough that people are able to use them in creative ways in construction.
It's really about the democratization of technology on the job site and making sure that kind of technology is useful, also cheap enough to kind of deploy in large scale. And I think another kind of element that you kind of alluded to but didn't specifically call out is this bring your own device culture. One of the things we're seeing at Egnyte consistently is all these mobile applications that rely on the fact that folks have these little supercomputers in their pockets, and they're taking notes, they're taking videos, they're taking images, they're completing forms, all of that on the same device that they use, for their own personal applications. So that I think is a tremendous amount of power. and it's creating this explosion, not just of applications and companies that are kind of going after this business, but also an incredible amount of new data. I mean, if you look at the amount of data that's generated by all these devices, it's truly astounding.
So I 100% agree. A combination of that democratization and the bring your own devices, but I also think that our customers are waking up to the fact that they need to deploy these devices. They need to empower their employees with them. And it's the same problem that companies like Egnyte have dealt with in terms of shadow IT, right? Like you can kind of let them do it on their own, or you can figure out what your own policies are and do it in a much more comprehensive way. And that data is becoming increasingly ubiquitous and is becoming increasingly valuable. That's some of the things you see that are, again, exciting about our acquisition by Autodesk is they've got some things around what they call construction IQ, where there's machine learning applied to that. And frankly, PlanGrid has had machine learning applied to what we do since pretty much day one to allow people to unlock a lot of the information that was before captured in paper. Now they can find ways to access that digitally and collaborate around it. And it's becoming pretty incredible to watch the kinds of things that people do with our application and with others out there.
And then kind of on top of that, as you get all this vast amount of data that's being generated, you're seeing these, call them second order or second generation startups that come on top of that to help companies kind of manage the massive amount of essentially raw information and turn it into useful data. You're seeing companies like SmartVid, which is one of our Egnyte's partners, that kind of runs on top of videos to kind of identify safety violations and things of that nature. You're seeing companies that are coming out there to help analyze drone video for kind of secondary things that you can learn from that video once it's created. So this is a truly incredible time to be in construction tech, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely agree. But yes, SmartVid is another company that we're familiar with. In fact, they're integrated with BIM 360, which is the Autodesk product that I mentioned. Great company doing really incredible stuff. And this goes back to my point about mobile, right? That so SmartVid takes video and photos and applies artificial intelligence to them. Like you said, one of their primary use cases is finding safety violations so that you can basically fix them before you have some OSHA inspector coming in and giving you fines. And frankly, more importantly, keeping your people safe, right? Helping them understand and build a culture of safety, which is very important amongst most of our customers, is having that, or basically all of our customers, is keeping their people safe. And that only works because of the ease of capturing those photos and video. That you're right, that everybody's got now a smartphone in their pocket. And more of the foremen and superintendents on these job sites are carrying tablets, and so they can snap pictures. And while they're snapping pictures of a piece of conduit that didn't extend as far or whatever, or a wall that they want to take a picture of the wall before it's closed up so they can have all the wiring in there, they're also capturing people in the background. And so then SmartVid can do things like make sure that they're wearing the right safety vests and goggles and things like that. And all of that comes together in unexpected ways to unlock a lot of value for our customers.
So all of this stuff that we've been talking about, creates a wealth of opportunities for companies like us to invest kind of in building ecosystems around construction technology. PlanGrid and Egnyte have been working together for a long time. And I know you guys have been investing heavily in kind of building your own ecosystem as have we. What are some of the kind of unique challenges that you face in building your construction partnerships on a day-to-day basis?
I'd say that we kind of face challenges on two ends of a spectrum. On the first end is a lot of the traditional technology and technology companies that have approached construction just haven't built these partnering muscles. A lot of the legacy on-premises ERP systems, for instance, they always sold themselves as a one-stop shop, and that you could do everything in their system. And to an extent, when you were talking about cost tracking and budgets and schedules and all that stuff, you could do it all in one system, and you could extend those systems to handle that. And so it's not part of how they did it. And you didn't have some of those luminary examples like Salesforce and NetSuite that in more horizontal approach and line of business approaches, it really built those ecosystems and showed the power that can have. That just hadn't happened yet in technology. You're starting to have us and other players do some of that. Us and BIM 360 on the Autodesk side, but even before they acquired us, have been taking that approach, but that's a more recent development. So trying to get those technologies integrated and trying to move data between them and break down those silos has been a challenge, but one that we've been working through. And then on the other end, and part of what we've been talking about is the fact that all of these startups have been popping up. And so there's a nearly infinite or seemingly infinite universe of potential integration partners in there, and trying to get your arms wrapped around all of them and know which places to put your resources and which ones for us to prioritize. That's been something that we've had to work really hard at to make that meaningful for PlanGrid and meaningful for our customers. Of course, we do things like we work really closely with our sales team so that we're getting constant customer feedback to understand what they're investing in terms of technology, and try and prioritize who we approach and who we work with in those kinds of ways. But of course, then you end up with a recency bias where the salesperson, of course, insists that their customer and more precisely the customer they most recently spoke to is the one that we should be listening to, and it's that application that they did. And then you go find out that it's like 3 people who spun up a proof of concept app, and then you're like, well, all right, hold on. Like
that's never happened to me.
They can integrate with us.
Never literally happened.
That's right. Yeah. So, and of course, we try and take an approach. Like we will work with and integrate with everybody, or we will, give them the tools to integrate with us. There's also a limit of how much time and energy you can devote to any one partner if you take that approach. And so we have to take an approach where we can be scalable and yet meaningful in terms of the kinds of activities we do with partners. And that's a real fine line that my team and I have to walk, and that we've been, I think, sometimes we've done it really well, and sometimes it's been a little bit more challenging.
Right. And, something you said here struck me. You started out by talking about how some of the established players have not kind of developed the muscles for partnering. And, in kind of this cloud environment that we're living in right now, that is such a defunct idea. It's incredible. There are still some companies out there that we speak to that say, we don't have public APIs, and you see that a lot in kind of long established industries like financial services, like construction, like healthcare, where exactly as you said, these large established companies don't necessarily yet grasp the value of being able to work with others to kind of accomplish what the customer is asking for, essentially. And look, some of those companies, that even some of the ones we do partner with, don't have a function or a role like yours and mine. They don't. We end up collaborating with somebody on their product team, for instance, which can also be very valuable. But they haven't developed the technology in terms of APIs, like you said. They haven't developed the go-to-market activities and processes and priorities that you've done, and they haven't figured out how to articulate to their customers the value of it, or even haven't, in some cases, probably realized the value of it. And the other kind of the flip side of this is when we talk about all these kind of smaller organizations which are just popping up everywhere and are bringing tremendous innovation and energy into the space. When we talk to them, we also have to kind of keep in mind the fact that, just by I guess law of Darwinism, some of these aren't gonna be around forever, right? And how do you partner with those folks where customers are kind of looking to adopt the services, and yet you're also trying to make sure that those customers that do kind of work with your partners, have protection in case something goes, not the right way for these smaller partners.
Yeah, it's something that doesn't, I think, have a great answer. It's definitely a challenge we've seen as well. I mean, to some extent, the hope is if you've got a good number of customers who are using it, then it'll have escape velocity and it won't go away. But at the same time, like that's part of, I've both in this partnership role and in past roles, I've always tried to stay away from the notion of exclusivity, for instance, that we work with anybody that's willing to work with us in a particular sector, partly because we want to give a lot of options to our customers, and so they can gravitate towards the ones that get the most value to them. But also for exactly this reason, if one of those players goes away, then hopefully we've got, when they come to us and they say, company X disappeared, what do I do? We say, well, there's these 3 others that you might consider. And, they all integrate in strong ways with PlanGrid as well. So, take your pick and we can introduce you and take an approach that way. But it's definitely, frankly, in this space, in the construction tech space, I think we're on the brink of that becoming a bigger problem. I think that you're going to see more of those in the next 2 years where it was a great idea, but it was crowded out by a bunch of other similar great ideas, and half of them will disappear in any given construction tech subsector.
No, I think that's one of the blessings of the cloud era. I think is the fact that the word exclusivity is more or less disappeared from business development lingo. People don't talk about that anymore, and with good reason, right? We work, just like you said, with everybody that wants to work with us, because at the end of the day, it's the customer that makes the call, right? You have to kind of be there to address the use case that they're trying to solve with their chosen partner. It is what it is.
And the way I've always approached it, working with folks like you and working with our other partners is, when they come and tell me, hey, we're going to be integrating with competitor X, I say, well, all right, you should do that. I can't stop you from doing that. But my job, my team's job, is to make sure that we're the best partner we can be to you, so that when you have a customer opportunity, we're your first call, that we're the ones that you want to recommend and do that. So, that's the best we can do. But I always think that's a better approach than exclusivity. So I agree with you. It's not, you don't hear it come up much anymore, and I think there's a lot of good reasons for that.
So, one of the things that I'm curious about is kind of how this recent acquisition, impacts your guys' partnership strategy, right? So prior to the acquisition, you were a smaller company, mid-sized company. Now you're part of an established industry behemoth. How does that shift the work of kind of the alliances professional?
The short answer is not a lot. My team is still doing the same good work that we've always been doing. And part of that is that it's just fortunate in terms of Autodesk being the ones who acquired us, because the partnerships team on the BIM 360 product, as we have met with them over the last 6 months and gotten to know them really well and collaborated with them a lot, we found a very kindred spirit, that they're approaching the market and all the same ways that you and I have been talking about today. And so that has been really helpful. But I will say that, to a large extent, we've always boxed a little bit above our weight class in terms of who we could partner with and how the customers we signed and things like that. But our size and scale was actually a really well-kept secret. We had not raised money. When we got acquired, it had been several years since we'd raised any money, and people didn't really know how much we had grown. So those numbers that I rattled off before, now that those are public knowledge, it helps give us a little bit more credibility as we partner. And I think that's been really helpful. The other thing I think is going to be, it's already starting to show some really great dividends, and it's going to be even better, is having the resources of Autodesk is going to allow us to deliver a lot more value to our partners, particularly on the go-to-market front. We held the PlanGrid Construction Summit last June, and had 15 partners, yourselves included, who came and sponsored, and it was a fantastic event. We had somewhere around 800 customers come, and the partner pavilion was packed on all the right times, and got great exposure to our partners. So we were really enthusiastic about that. Well, this year, instead of doing that, we're now part of Autodesk University, which is in November in Las Vegas, and that has over 10,000 people coming. So, more than an order of magnitude larger of an event. And so the ability to get our partners exposure to that much broader reach of Autodesk is going to be really powerful. And then, as we are even just now beginning to think about, instead of, partner with PlanGrid, instead it's partner with Autodesk Construction Solutions, and being able to help a partner, for instance, think about not, what's my integration with PlanGrid, but what integrations will be most valuable across this whole suite of products, and help guide them into that. We're going to be able to drive a lot more customer value through all that. So there's a scale and a reach thing that's going to be really powerful, that we're only just now really starting to be able to tap into. And so there's going to be an explosion of opportunity through that.
That's pretty cool. You guys certainly put a good event together. I'll give you that. Hey, so let's switch gears for a little bit, and talk about folks that are starting out in construction tech or elsewhere, and they've got our roles, and they're kind of trying to figure out how to build a partnership strategy, how to build a partnership, I guess, list of priorities. I'm curious about what advice you give to folks like that, and how should they approach the problem that they've got? What are the pitfalls that they should avoid?
I think one of the key things that makes someone effective in these roles is working really well cross-functionally within your own company. You need to understand how to work with your product and engineering team, with your marketing team, even at times your finance team, all the folks that everything we do is bringing together the rest of our company in a cross-functional way to work well with another company. So being able to build those ties and those relationships within your company is really important, and not just trying to go to them and go to those other organizations within your company and say, we need to do this, that, or the other thing, but understanding what are their priorities, and how do you find those great synergies between what's important for partners and what's important for the other departments in your company, so you can find those win-win situations. So that's aspect one. The other thing I would say is that too many times I've seen with partners of ours, particularly at smaller companies, that they think that the partnership is really about lead generation or demand generation, when I think it's better to anchor what you're doing, particularly when you're talking about technology integration partnerships, to anchor them on what is the customer pain point that you're solving, and what is the customer value that you're creating by doing the integration. Because I'm sure you've seen this, Ronen, where people do those check the box integrations, and they're like, oh yeah, it's great. Now because we know that you have 120,000 users, like we only need 10% of those. And you're like, well, hold on, that's actually really hard, and you're not going to get 10% of those. So you can't think of it as like this is going to triple your lead flow. Instead, you have to think about how are you going to arm your salespeople or arm your marketing department to say, hey, our product is now more valuable, or our service is now more valuable because it is connected to PlanGrid, because it is connected to Egnyte, or whatever partnership that is. And so that's a big piece to me, is that people who think that these partnerships are going to transform their company and double their company size overnight. Instead, they need to think about it more from the customer's point of view, and less from the oh my gosh, the opportunity is so massive point of view.
Right. I mean, so definitely it needs to be anchored with the customer experience. I will say that Egnyte has a fair number of smaller partners that have come to us with really compelling value. And once kind of they were able to articulate to us the value for our customers, we started bringing them into deals, and they've seen market increase in their business. Now, of course, if they came to me like the first time we met and they'd say, hey, listen, we're going to do this, and then you're going to introduce us to all your customers, that's not the way it works, right? It's you have to have the right expectation in place, but it's not that the business can't follow. The business can follow with the right execution and the right mindset. What's your response to that one, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think we're saying similar things. I agree with that. I wouldn't be in this role if I didn't think I could drive business value for PlanGrid and Autodesk. And similarly, if I can't do that unless I can drive business value for the partners, because it'll be short-lived if the partners don't get anything out of it.
That's right.
And so But I'd also challenge and say that what you're talking about, for instance, like salespeople bringing your partners into deals, and that can drive absolutely meaningful revenue and opportunities for your partners. What they're not going to see is all of a sudden their marketing pipeline, quadruple.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
What I'd say is that it's not totally unusual for that to be the expectation, particularly for some of the companies or the folks who haven't done these kinds of roles before. They kind of hear the tales of getting, huge leverage, but I can tell you as someone who is, previously, for instance, advertised in the Salesforce App Exchange, the lead flow from that is almost always, from those kinds of things, even at the scale of somebody like Salesforce, is almost always disappointing. It has to be that much more, I'll describe it as the tactical ground game of figuring out that really compelling better together story and why the integration is really good for customers, and then arming salespeople to know that. And even then, having your expectations be properly set, because salespeople are loath to bring partners into deals, right? They don't like to give up that control or add that variability of what is the partner going to do or say. So you have to come up with that customer-facing reason why the salesperson is going to care. I think Ronen, you guys have done that well.
So James, we're coming up on the end of our talk here, and I want to wrap up with just kind of one last question. And this is something that I really like hearing from folks. Can you share with us the deal that you've done in your career that you're proudest of? Like, what's one kind of game-changing deal that you've kind of led, and why is it your number one?
I'm going to stick to stuff from the last 7 or 8 years in the partnership realm, because before that, I was in finance and banking, and to some extent, it's hard to be proud of some of that stuff. But and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say there were 2 of them. One, at my prior company, we stood up a formal partner program that we had been doing the one-by-one partnerships, and we had some templates and some best practices that we generally adhered to. But one of the things I did a few years in there is I actually formalized that and worked cross-functionally across our product team, our platform team, and our marketing team, and frankly our sales team, to formalize some very clear gives and gets that allowed us to set those expectations of the partners, particularly of the smaller ones, who we could then much better strike that balance of being meaningful yet scalable. And so I was proud of getting that stood up, and that that persists today. Some of my former colleagues have taken the ball and continued to run with it. So that was one that I'm proud of. And then more recently, even just the end of last year, here at PlanGrid, we launched PlanGrid Connect, which I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion. And that's another one where I'm really proud of how well that's doing. It was an idea that actually, to some extent, I'm not sure if I told you this, Ronen, but it was born out of working with you guys. Is that we've had an integration with Egnyte for a long time, and it's been valuable in that people could pull their drawings out of Egnyte and into PlanGrid, so they could go take them out into the field in the ways that PlanGrid really shines. And then they could also take all the things that they do in PlanGrid, and they could package them up in an as-built, is what the construction industry refers to it, but the collection of documentation from the construction site, and then they could save that to Egnyte so they have it in their source of truth repository in your system. But what I heard over and over again for the last several years was, well, I don't want to have to do that. I want it to just be done for me. I want a two-way automated synchronization. And what I think you and I both know is that is really hard. That customers say that like that's a simple thing, right? But when you start talking about 2 different applications with different permission layers and with different schedules and trying to handle collisions and all those kinds of things, that can be really, really hard. But with this PlanGrid Connect platform, we're able to do that. We've got customers today doing that live with Egnyte, and doing it at scale, doing it across many, many construction projects. And so that's really exciting to me. And it's not just with you guys and with that use case. It's also with taking data. We talked about all that wealth of data that's being created in construction now, and being able to pull that into things like Smartsheet or into Tableau and slice and dice that across projects and across different applications the way that makes the most sense for a customer. Or even in some cases being able to move data or documentation between us and some of the competing apps out there, because construction is a team sport where a subcontractor who is standardized on PlanGrid and really loves that might be working with a general contractor who uses different software, whether that's a cloud cloud content provider or some other project, construction project management solution. A lot of those now we can help customers build these very customized automated synchronization workflows through the PlanGrid Connect platform, and we're seeing tons of value in that. And so that's really, that's been really exciting for me over the last several months.
The right deal and the right partnership can move companies. That's for sure. James, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for doing that. And everybody, this was James Cook, head of strategic alliances and partnerships at PlanGrid, now part of Autodesk. And I'm Ronen Vengosh, VP of Platform and Ecosystem for Egnyte. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ronen.